All right, we are so close to wrapping up step 2 of the Passport to Creativity system, which is believe. And so what I want to do is really just have a definition of creativity that we can all agree with and we can all agree to, because some of you might have a belief that creativity is so narrow, how you define creativity is so narrow. You might have a friend that you believe is immensely talented and comes up with ideas that you could never come up with. And if your definition of creativity is what your friend is doing, yeah, I can't give you what your friend is doing. But that doesn't mean, or like if you're like thinking of the group of creatives, the artists that are famous, or the geniuses of all history, that definition of creativity is very hard to achieve. So let's look at a little more realistic definition of creativity. I believe it's helping you use your imagination, a process of using your imagination to generate ideas that you have never come up with before. So let's talk just a brief second about the imagination. Hopefully it's not hard to convince you that you have one, but just in case, let me give you an example. Let's say you're an introvert and you're forced to go to a networking event. You know it's good for you, but you don't want to go. And so you anticipate in your mind's eye what that experience is going to be like. You might see yourself messing up all over the place, spilling food, just shaking, just horrible experience. You just see that in your mind's eye, even though you haven't been there yet. Or vice versa, you're an extrovert, you love parties, and you're about to go to one. So you're anticipating how great it's going to be. You're thinking about who's going to be there. You might do shots later. It's a great time. You're anticipating in your mind what's going to occur even before it's occurred. You're using your imagination to anticipate an event. So you might never have used your imagination in a creative capacity, but you have an imagination and you have access to that. That definition of creativity is also pretty broad. And so I think you can also see how, just mentioned about the idea that you might compare yourself with the geniuses of all time that are considered the creative geniuses. I think it's safe to say there's actually a spectrum of creativity. There's those on high, like the Mozarts and the Einsteins. People consider him to be, the way he used his mind was very creative, even though he's also smart, a combination. But there's sort of like these, Steve Jobs and these people, Elon Musk, people that are considered creative geniuses, or people that have so many different creative ideas. They're kind of on the spectrum. And then on the other opposite side of the spectrum is kind of like the everyday creativity, because I think there is everyday creativity. And what I mean by daily creativity is there are opportunities that we use our imaginations to come up with ideas all the time. One of my favorite examples is when you have a conversation, a straight, honest conversation with a stranger who you've never, interacted with, and you're genuinely in the moment and you're generating your responses spontaneously based on that conversation. You're literally coming up with what you're about to say while you're saying it. You're not thinking about what you're going to say and then saying it. You actually say it while you're in the conversation. That active listening and that dialogue. That's a generation of ideas that you haven't thought of because you haven't had that conversation with that person. So that's one very simple idea of daily creativity. Another might be just the idea that you might be somebody who likes to cook, and one time you find out that you're out of paprika, but you have cumin, or I don't know how to pronounce these things. I'm not a cook. But the idea that you might have thought, let me just try a different spice because I like this spice already, or I'm out of this one. So over time you start to tweak the recipe and you try it out each time. And so you're experimenting and you're changing what was once in one form into another form. That's another form of creativity. And some people have made their family recipes that have been handed down because of their creativity, the way they were able to come up with this idea that tastes amazing. So you've got the famous creatives on the one spectrum. You've got daily creativity that's most people don't even necessarily consider creative, but is actually still creative. I definitely believe that. On the opposite side of the spectrum. And in the middle of the spectrum is probably those professionals that have to generate new ideas on an almost daily basis. People that are in the advertising or marketing business, design, engineering, business problem solutions, different places where professionals have to be coming up with new ideas all the time. And so there's no real luxury of being creative or not. They have to come up with new things, or else, it's innovate or die in some places. So they've learned how to leverage the creative process to be able to continually come up with new ideas leveraging their imagination to come up with ideas they've never come up with before. And of course, the other group in the middle of the spectrum are the artists and musicians and dancers and actors and the other professions that are more in the artistic range as opposed to the commercial range. They're always coming up with new ideas. They're always trying to find inspiration. It's not easy. I'm never saying this is easy, but there are ways to be able to, kind of come up with routines or rituals or processes that allow you to, again, kind of build those opportunities for the inspiration to come to you. And I'll be definitely sharing all of that in the future as well. So that's essentially what I'm going to do next, is show how we go from the one side of the spectrum to the higher ends of the spectrum by using the processes and techniques and tools that are available to us. One other thing I wanted to touch on related to the definition of creativity and the creative spectrum is that the value of the outcome of the creative process is independent of the creative process. The creative process is the creative process. Being creative is being creative. But this, one idea that's generated from the creative process could generate an entire industry. But the same process could generate a smile on a child's face. The value of the outcome of the creativity is based on what you choose to apply your creativity towards. If you are looking to come up with a new idea in business and you are in that space looking around and finding a way to generate something creative that may generate that kind of value, that may happen. But you could also just want to paint a painting that makes you really, really want to stare at it for hours on end. It's up to you.